Senator, welcome back.
It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. I am happy to catch you now that session is over before you head home for the interim. So let's talk about the session and let's talk about the wins first. There were several big bipartisan wins this session, particularly the creation of the independent office of the Inspector General. Not only was that bipartisan, but it was one of your caucus's high priority items this session, which was combating fraud. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so the OIG bill that passed was a bipartisan win, both in the House and the Senate. We passed it last year off the floor and did a lot of work in the interim, and then this session again on making sure that it passed over in the House. It was a good bill that, people across the state have been talking about the issues with fraud and where their taxpayer dollars are going. And it was up to us to address those issues. And so I think we did in a big way here. Not only the OIG bill, but there was a number of bills that passed, and we used a lot of our leverage in the minority to get a lot of those at the very end of session done. So we're very proud of that and want to see that work done now. We've passed the bills, now the hard work comes into play of actually putting those into effect.
Yeah, I know another one that passed that was courtesy of your caucus was the Take It Back Act, which makes total sense when you think about it.
Yeah, that's one that Senator Steve Drazkowski, did a lot of work on and got that through at the end. And so, he is one that has been very much a hawk on fiscal responsibility and growth of government, things like that. And this was one that just made sense, where you're going to tax any sort of proceeds that a fraudster might be benefiting from to 100%, so that they never benefit from the proceeds that they have stolen from Minnesota taxpayers.
Glad to see these things going into effect. Now, we did have some fraud protections already in place, and they could use some refinement because we heard stories of legitimate service providers getting caught up in investigations, which was impacting Minnesotans with disabilities, causing them to lose their services either temporarily or for the foreseeable future. So have some of those issues been corrected, or is that still work to be done?
Yeah, and that's an issue that, as we pointed out, the fraud was occurring for the last 8 years. The governor's office and the administration was very slow at addressing those issues. Then when it became a national headline, he came down very heavy-handed on our agencies and the service providers underneath them in a way that didn't make any sense, where it cut off legitimate services, and it also cut off the fraudulent ones as well too. So what we've done is put together a package here that is more even-handed, that allows those who are operating in good faith and providing the services to Minnesotans to continue providing those. But it'll help to address the fraudsters and cut off the payments to those.
Excellent. No more catching dolphins in the tuna net, as Senator Abler would say. You guys had another bipartisan win this session, which was the Consumer Protection Bill, which added protections for people living in homeowners associations and common interest communities. So talk to me about what these bipartisan wins mean for your caucus.
Well, that's one that Senator Eric Lucero worked very hard on over the last 2 years. And that we've all seen the videos of the overzealous homeowners association coming after folks for different items, maybe ticky-tack sort of fouls on their property. This allows homeowners to have more protection, more ability to enforce their property rights on their own property without taking away from the full community. So this had buy-in across the spectrum, from property owners to attorney groups to homeowners associations, in a way that made sense. So he put a lot of work in this, and I think at the end we came up with a really good bipartisan bill that people were pretty proud to vote for.
And when we see senators working together across the aisle, what does that mean for the Senate and Minnesota as a whole, like when we see this happen?
Yeah, it's taken 4 years to get to this point where we have really good working relationships. So it's sad to see so many retirements here in the Senate. I think we have something like 17 retirements coming up in the Senate. We just got done with the retirement speeches, and these are long-time members. I think overall the combined years of service was 262 out of those members that had retired. So we're going to miss that, and we're going to get a new group of people in this November. But again, it's a process of the institution to get folks in and build up those relationships and start building trust so that we can work across the aisle again.
And during those retirement speeches, I heard repeated over and over the need for bipartisanship and the hope of working together more in the future. So, your members that are staying on heard that, so maybe that will continue.
Well, I certainly hope so. That's a big goal for us and for the other side as well too. And one thing that I was pretty proud of too is Senator Murphy and myself do a Wednesday morning walk and just try to keep up to date on what's happening in the caucuses, how can we help out, and that relationship with Leader Murphy has been really good, and I think it's been growing over the last 4 years, and looking forward to continuing that going forward.
Plus, you can never be mad about getting your steps in. Another focus of your caucus this session was to improve affordability across the state, and that was through tax relief. You guys saw one of those efforts across the finish line, which was reducing tab fees, and that came about negotiation. So talk to me about that process.
So when you go to the grocery store or you go to the gas station, you will hear repeatedly from people that approach you, man, we are paying so much in this state. I just put tabs on my vehicle and it was $1,000 or $1,500. And so we've heard this over and over again. And one of the things we were able to do at the end of session was leverage the bonding bill to reduce those tab fees. It's just a 1-year reduction, but even that's $254 million. And that's $254 million. It's going to stay in Minnesota taxpayers' pocketbooks. And that's really important to us because that's what we hear all the time from those folks. So we were able to do that and provide a bonding bill of $1.2 billion to invest in our communities. It was a win-win situation, and it didn't take any money away from our roads, our bridges, and that infrastructure. That 252 came right off the bottom line in a way that's money well spent when it's going back to Minnesota taxpayers.
Was the legislature able to move forward with any other affordability measures this session?
There are a number of things that we tried to get across, a number of tax breaks and different things. There was pass-through entity tax, there was some 179, which are all business related sort of taxes. There's also some property tax relief within that package that we're able to get across the finish line as well too. That's another one that Minnesotans are feeling the pain on. And this is an ability to get money back to Minnesota taxpayers. So a few items we're excited about, but there's a lot more work that we should be doing.
Okay. There were successful bipartisan bills, as we've talked about, but there were also many party line votes on high-profile packages like gun violence prevention and immigration enforcement. So what are you thinking when those moments are unfolding?
Yeah, those are some that we really struggled with as we're going through the legislation on that. And at the end, there just wasn't the votes in both bodies to pass some of those things. There were some great packages. If you took out the controversial pieces that dealt with mental health, that dealt with community safety, that dealt with investments for our schools and our communities, that increased the safety. Those are things that bipartisanly we could get across the aisle or across the finish line really, really well. But then there's always these political points that people are trying to score within the bills that really create a toxic bill for the parties. So there was a lot of letdowns that way, but again, as we were developing that legislation, we saw a lot of opportunities that some we passed, some weren't able to get done, but we'll keep working on that in the years to come.
Okay. You said the session would have played out differently if your caucus had been in the majority. So tell me about some of that. What would we have seen?
Absolutely. So our focus as Republicans in the Senate is the taxpayers, is the citizens of Minnesota. And so how can we make sure that we're making life better, easier for them? Making sure that our schools are the top in the nation, making sure that our infrastructure is the best that it can possibly be, making sure that our communities are safe for families, and making sure that our business community can thrive here. And what we've seen continually over the last 4 years is Democrats putting their effort into the government. How can we grow government? How can we do labor negotiations at the state capitol? How can we, just strengthen these institutions, not the individuals? And that's really just misplaced priorities, and we're paying the price for that right now. Our schools are testing at below the national average. We're lower than Mississippi. We're lower than some of these states when you think of low education scores. Now we're there. Now this is really just such a shame for Minnesotans and something that we should be reversing. That's what we want to do.
I heard a lot of talk about our education standards and scores during those retirement speeches as well, so it really seems to have been a focus towards the end of the session. Do you think that that's something that will come up next session?
It better. That's something that we need to focus on as a state. That's something where right now the Democrats have been very focused on mandates, on just very descriptive learning platforms and things like that. What we want to do is make sure that the kids are in the best possible situation to be learning. And that's something we have to focus on as a state.
Senator, there were wins this session. There were maybe some more difficult moments on the floor, but ultimately, do you think it was successful?
From my perspective, I think it was a 50-50. There was some wins that were in there, some things that we were proud of. But then there was a lot of things that I think we really missed the ball on tax relief, on education, on just making sure that the state is in better shape at the end of the day. But you know, it's 50-50, and hopefully when we get back to it next year, it's a budget year and a chance to do some great things.
We can improve those odds.
Amen.
What has been your main takeaway or your greatest lesson learned this session?
This session, it is about just relationships, making sure that you're working together, trying to understand the other side. I think we all saw that when the House was tied as it was. Well, what does the other side need to get this bill passed? What is a Republican? What is a Democrat? And trying to understand that. I think we made some big strides this year in that, and ended up really starting to understand each other better.
If you had a favorite moment, what was it? I liked Senator Duckworth's President Bush impersonation, personally.
That is a highlight, isn't it, of the year? You know, one of the highlights I have is in the spring when finally the grass is greened up and we're kind of in this end of session, start and stop. I took my chief of staff out, Jason Fossum. We always go out and play catch for a little bit between meetings, and so that's a memory that I'm going to retain for quite some time.
All right. We will see new faces in the chamber next session from both caucuses. What do you want these new members, the incoming freshmen, to know before they start?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them. I mean, it's such a great experience to be in the Minnesota Senate. Very few people have had that opportunity to be a member there, and so just to make sure that they understand what you're coming here to do, and it's to serve the people of the state. Some people don't realize that until a few years into their time here at the Senate, but to really focus on those individuals, their needs, your communities, and represent them well at the Senate. And it's about relationships, and not to aggrandize oneself, but to really focus on the needs of others around you. And so that's a big lesson that I think some need to learn, some pick it up quick, and some take some time.
Well, it's a good thing that you have you there to help lead the way. All right, Senator, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.